So this is my presentation. It's about political polarization online. We're terribly sorry that Dra. Susana Salgado can't be here with us today. Luis already talked about that. She got sick, so she won't be here because she was going to talk about Facebook and Cambridge Analytica and micro-political targeting and all that. So that part, unfortunately, we're not going to present, but my communication actually goes to the second part of this event, which is after populism, how can we see those kinds of tendencies also online? Like Sarka said, I'm very interested on that because I think democracy under threat, and I'm going to show you guys why. So, what is political polarization? Can refer to divergence of political attitudes to ideological extremes. This is one of classic definitions about it. And also when moderate voices lose power and influence. And actually, it was very interesting what Slawomir was telling us about the validity of the democratic process. Because like you said, and very well, someone in power can always say, well, you guys elected me, but we don't have a voice. Well, that's your problem now. I'm elected. So when this all started, well, the main event was in actually 1968. At the time, we were going through the conventions for the Democrats and for the Republicans, and CBS had this great idea was to put two people talking, one with one side of the story and the other one with the side of the story. This have become the very famous Buckley and Gore Vidal, William Buckley, Gore Vidal debates. And at the time, they know, CBS, that there were a market for political polarization, especially because more ratings, more people watching, more money coming from commercials. So it was the beginning of the modern political punditry. And let me show you in a video, and maybe Miguel, you can help me here if the thing doesn't start. Because I'm going to show you just a small clip that it is known by the historians as the beginning of the point, counterpoint, and then going into polarization immediately. So the question from the moderator is, what do you think about free expression? Because at the time, the Vietnam War was going on, and Buckley was a conservative, Gore Vidal was more of a progressive. So the question goes to the two gentlemen. Thank you, Miguel, for your help. And this is the moderator, and he's going to ask, so what is your guys' position about free speech? And look what happens next.
Would have had similar consequences.
You must realize what some of the political issues are here. There are many people in the United States happen to believe that the United States policy is wrong in Vietnam, and the Viet Cong are correct in wanting to organize their country in their own way politically. This happens to be pretty much the opinion of Western Europe and many other parts of the world. If it is a novelty in Chicago, that is too bad. But I assume that the point of the American democracy is you can express any point of view you want. Shut up a minute.
No, I won't. And some people were pro-Nazi, and the answer is that they were well treated by people who ostracized them, and I'm for ostracizing people who egg on other people to shoot American Marines and American soldiers. I know you don't
as
care.
As far as
you
I'm
don't feel any sense
concerned,
of
the only sort
identification.
of pro-crypto-Nazi I can think of is yourself. Failing that, I would only say that we can't have
Now listen, you
the right of
stop
assembly.
calling me a crypto-Nazi.
Let's stop calling
I'll
names
you
and
in your
let's get...
goddamn face, and you'll stay plastered.
Gentlemen, let's...
Oh, Bill.
Let the author of Myra Breckenridge go back to his pornography and stop making any allusions of Nazism to somebody who was infantry in the last war.
You were not in the infantry, as a matter of fact. You didn't fight in the infantry. You were not. Now you're distorting your own military record.
So this was the first moment on American television where two people speaking were actually coming to the point of just violence, physical violence. You can see William Buckley, he's just dying to punch Gore Vidal in the face. Because Buckley said, well, they're the Nazis, and the Nazis, they put flags, and I don't like the Nazis. And Gore Vidal says, well, the only Nazi I can see in here is you. And Buckley goes, you queer. Which this, on American television at the time, was, absolutely extraordinary. And he says, if you call me crypto-Nazi again, I'll punch you in the face. So what happened when American media, João, when American media, at the time, of course, very conservative, saw this, they thought, oh, this is going to be the end of it. That we won't see this anymore. No, actually, gains of unconventional rating increase because, as I was saying, there was money to be made. So also what happens, what this kind of coverage became the pattern for how to cover news and how to cover politics. So a new industry was born, and that is punditry. And debate, clash of opinions, getting worse and worse as we are moving on to nowadays, of course. And now with a 24-hour loop of televisions that give us this around the clock. Also, the other thing we saw was taking an advantage from political outlets of what was already being done by sports media, especially online, which is to have this kind of appeal, so as you enter. So a very popular, there are many, but for example, one of the most popular ones, Politico, see how they made their product very appealing to an entire group of people that they were already used to this kind of showing of the news. There was a case on online culture. Gamergate was when a couple of women protested because of misogyny and sexism on the video game culture. And that was the beginning of what is called nowadays the politicization of absolutely everything. And this is a very seminal article on Vox. You can find it online very easily from Ezra Klein, which we have more and more sides that are segregated, and this is his words, into separate information loops. So what happened is that I'm building my tribe, you're building your tribe, and we're going to clash, and we are going to clash fiercely. And this is going to be the future of debate online. And all happened because of, well, not all of it, but mainly because of this case, which is Gamergate. So what happened was that Gamergate then opened that kind of political online debate to platforms that actually start feeding not only traditional media, but also politicians, but also people that have an opinion article on New York Times, for example. So this was primed, this model was primed then to be explored, and this is an American expression, weaponized for political and social purposes. And this, of course, we don't like him, but we have to give him credit. He saw an entry point to start creating chaos because he collected all the people from Gamergate, put it on Breitbart, and then just starting to make the process of polarization increasing, especially on politics. So what is the problem? This kind of new rules of democracy are very problematic since they affect in multiple ways, and not all of them favorable, the democratic process. And this happens, for example, on the Brexit referendum, on the US and some European elections, on the rise of populist parties, on the keyboard armies, and we're going to touch about that pretty soon, troll factories, misinformation campaigns, fake news, political targeting. So more and more, what happened is that the electorate, it's losing faith or becoming cynic on the democratic process, or just don't know what to believe anymore and how to decide. This is growing, and it also reaches the established institutions, political organizations, traditional media, opinion makers. They lost the power to regulate. They were the gatekeepers of information. So you imagine a newspaper like New York Times or Washington Post, Público, Diário de Notícias. those were the gatekeepers of information. And all of a sudden, the cage is open. And information just flows with no control, with no checks, just goes into the internet, and people just start consuming that. Also, what happened is that there was an erosion of norms and a decrease in public service by the media. So, media was doing an education, and actually you were talking about educating. He's paying attention to his phone now, so no worries. But he was saying just a minute ago, how informed is the public? How educated is the public? And the traditional media, following the trends of the internet, actually, they started to do that too. And that is not to inform, not to educate. And this void in the internet age was tailor-made for nationalism and populism to thrive. So if you see the tendency as we go into 2013, then you start seeing the rise of populism and political parties going on in Europe. Now, what are the dynamics of polarization? What are the strategies that are used to spread disinformation online? One of them, and you can't see it, but from the cartoon, it's selective censorship. We don't censor everything, but we'll censor this. All right, that's acceptable. Well, we don't censor that, but then we'll censor that one also. And then it gets to a point that you can censor with no backlash. The other thing was hacking and weaponization of stolen information. And of course, this is very famous, affected especially the American elections, but also, as you can see, the Ukraine army and NATO, where agents at the behest of governments, and now we'll be talking about that a little later, but the question was already made. Those agents, like for example, Fancy Bear, could hack information and then put this information on outlets that actually can do more damage, like Wikipedia. Wikipedia can make damage also, but WikiLeaks. And then from WikiLeaks goes to the mainstream media, like for example, in the United States, Fox News, or Russian television, for example. More dynamics of polarization. Strategies, bots and trolls. That is a problem, you all know. I won't spend too longer in this. Manipulation of search algorithms in search engines. So the news or the fake news that promote populism will come up before all the others. And online clues. This is an example that is very important for us to detect. This was a sign that was made by radical groups, especially alt-right and extreme-right groups in the United States, where if you see this sign, it means that the person in the Twitter account is a Jew, is a globalist. So this sign will be enough for everyone else that is doing a search, and they find that person and they say, oh, I like the opinions of this person. On the back end, there are people saying, yeah, but he's a Jew. And Jews are trying to control the world. Actually, the backlash to the backlash was very interesting because then Jews started to use it just on purpose. So that was positive. But this kind of online clues to promote polarization. Fake news are amplified in partisan communities. So it's an echo chamber, we all know about that. It goes unchallenged, increases visibility, diminishes fact-checking or dissenting opinions. This causes a society that is increasingly misinformed and polarized along partisan lines, with the creation of ideological bubbles. So, what can we do? Internet access and media usage are not correlated plainly with polarization. Some studies show that that is not absolutely true. And so there are reasons for hope, and also misinformation appears to have a limited effect on the level of political knowledge. So there are good news, and we can work on that. Partisan clues are very important to understand and follow, because these partisan clues, they contribute to polarization and increasing partisan attitudes. And very important also is that when you are exposed to partisan outlets, then you are led to more and more hold inaccurate beliefs. Even, and Slavomir was talking about that, even if the facts are presented to you. So you have this political belief, and someone say, no, that's not correct. Here is the correct information. And they were like, no, I don't want that information. I want the information from my group. And my group says that this is right. So that is a problem, that is a dynamic, that polarization. More, sanction anger. So what I mean by that is online environment, it's more and more making extreme behaviors. This is a very important example right here, because a conservative guy that was working on Silicon Valley, he said, oh, well, Twitter and Facebook, they are censoring people, censoring conservatives. We can't have our opinions out. So I'm going to create an online platform for those people with no control whatsoever. No content control, no censorship, no taking out, bad speech. So what happened, and this was Gab, now it's closed. What happens, and I don't know if you guys follow this gentleman, Robert Bowers, he posted on Gab that Jews are trying to control the world, Jews are responsible for the caravan that is coming, and Jews need to be killed. So he bought multiple arms, multiple rifles, and he went into a synagogue in Pennsylvania, in Pittsburgh, and he killed, for what I remember, 15 people. So this is also very important, because this is festering, and more people are getting extreme because they have a support system behind them. Because if someone says Jews need to be killed, then you have the comments, and the comments are like, yeah, they sure should be killed. Yes, someone should do it. Yes, the person who do it will be a hero. And that just reinforces those behaviors. Still on online political polarization, what is the virality? So how fast, how big will it spread on the internet? And also what is called the meme war, and what is the audiovisual content? That is very interesting if you guys want to follow that. There is a fight going on right now between the two or multiple sides that are polarized, which is how can we make something that is funny and people will think it's great and they will share it. And the more shares, the more virality, again, the more the message comes through. So, how to fight political polarization? Diagnose the condition. We need to understand the environment and anti-liberal tendencies, either at the social level, political, cultural, even on the person's motivations. What are his intentions? What is he thinking? Is he doing this because he belongs to a tribe? Is he doing this because he has an agenda? Is he doing this because he doesn't know what he's doing? So, let's identify causality. What is the source of it? Know the entry points. Is it political curiosity? It's because someone that is entering Twitter, entering Facebook, is just curious, or is there something more? Like, for example, what is the timing in the life of the individual? Some data show that people are getting into this kind of world younger and younger and younger. And then the other side happens, which is older people don't care about internet, but that is for other reasons. What is the cross-pollination? So am I getting things from Facebook and then putting on Twitter, and then from Twitter to Reddit, and then am I just making a circle like the one that I showed just a minute ago? Characterize the means of polarization. What are the algorithms doing? Which groups exist online that are spreading anti-liberal or divisive message? What are the platform rules or lack? What echo chambers? What is the reward for being in a political bubble? So there's a lot of people studying this, and we should be paying attention, because this, like I was saying, is a threat to democracy. Understand the process that causes political extremism online. For example, the demonization of the other. You are an enemy. You are against me. And someone will say, well, half of my opinions are similar to yours. Yeah, but that one in particular, I don't like you, and I'm going to fight you about that. Political alienation, getting outside the political process. Don't trust it. Don't trust people in the political process. And then radicalization of ideology and or the ideological radicalization, and that has to do also with violence and, like, for example, terrorism attacks. Now, the empire is trying to strike back. I was in Madrid not long ago in the Congress of the ALDE party, and there was a lady there that made a communication about protection of election integrity on Facebook. And this lady, she was very nice, she said, well, we're working with governments now, we're working with the social agents, with media, with traditional media. Sure, they have a lot of sins to make up for. Like, for example, in 2016, after the US elections, this gentleman in here, I don't need to say who he is, everybody knows him, it says, oh, well, the idea that fake news influenced the American election is crazy. That was 2016. And then in 2017, when the Mueller investigation, which is trying to persecute the Russian influence on the election, when that thing is going, then Facebook hid. They hid proof that there were Russian influence on. Then they hid information. They had information that Russians were influencing Facebook, and they hid that, so that Republicans will not be upset with Facebook. This is him speaking on a talk. I can give it to you. And then on 2018, after public pressure, he said on a Senate committee, well, please don't sue us. Don't worry about it. We're working on it. We are taking care of it. It's all going to be fine from now on. So again, in the same year, we have the Cambridge Analytica scandal. And again, Zuckerberg was, we're terribly sorry. We didn't know about this. We promised that we'll make it better. And then just like two weeks ago, a paper from New York Times, an article from New York Times showed that Facebook contracted a PR Republican company called Definers Public Affairs that was trying to sow confusion because they were creating propaganda to protect Facebook. So all this is very dangerous, and we should be aware of it. Now, on Still the Empire Strike Back. So what can we do? Well, one thing is very important, it's to make providers accountable. And that is complicated because we're liberals, most of us, and we don't like regulation too much. We don't like to have the public sector have to do what we should think that they should do, but some people talk about it, and I agree that some accountability should exist. Like, for example, you can't see it in here, but Germany, not too long ago, and Slawomir can talk about this a little bit because he knows Germany reality very well. But the German government determined that the sites that won't remove harmful content in a quick way, they could pay fines because of that. Regulation of the discussion online. For example, Reddit, they banned certain forums with hate speech. And when Reddit was afraid that this could turn against them, actually, it made the platform better, and people didn't complain about it. And then, of course, everyone else migrated to other places, like Gab. Facebook, regulating speech, canceling accounts. Twitter, deleting bots from the platform, for example. In here, labeling the discussion. So when you enter a forum on Reddit or a page on Facebook, have a label saying, watch out, this in this place, there could be strong language or there could be anti-liberal opinions, so that when we come into those forums, we'll know what we can deal with it. Like, for example, Google is doing a lot of fact-checking now. They're banning fake news, for example, from their advertised network. So you can create a fake news account, and that's fine, but in that account. Facebook, they're partnering with trustworthy organizations like Snopes, Associated Press, PolitiFact, factcheck.org, so that the thing is running continuously. Every time some new Facebook page comes online, they have systems to check if the information is valid or fake news. Then some technical changes. Change the algorithms, okay? They're down-regulating hate speech. They're down-regulating fake news. They're down-regulating polarization, polarized opinions. So this then won't show on the search engine with possibly a decrease in hate speech, conspiracy theories, and online abuse. I'm almost done. Like YouTube. So YouTube, what they do is they prioritize engagement. So the more extreme the content is, the more the people are engaged. And the more you see extreme content on the bar on the right-hand side, more extreme content shows up. Because the algorithm on YouTube is thinking, oh, he likes Steve Bannon. Let me show you something about Alex Jones. Oh, he likes Alex Jones? Let me go to American ON News, and so on and so forth. So change the algorithm because of that. Stricter rules for political debate, with moderation both electronically and with a human that can control that, even if, of course, it's very hard. And this is very important. I'm going to linger here for a second. And that is the avoidance of clickbait, meaning that clicks means views, views means commercials, commercial means money. So there's a lot of people that are trying to change the online industry and try to create another system for support. For example, you will pay to have access. So in that way, you don't need to have as much views as possible to make money. You have less views, but people will pay for the service. So that's a paradigm shift that is going on the electronic world. Now, be aware of the macro problems. Governments and government agents on the internet are creating chaos. We already know that. They're spreading false news, they're creating chaos, discord, they're making counter-information. And watch out for the extent of polarization in the real world, because that leads to extremism, and then more extremism in social networks leads to more polarization, and this is a vicious cycle that is going on. The economy of attention. So what I mean by that is that everybody's always with their cell phones, and they're looking at their cell phones, and one more thing on your cell phone, and another more thing on your cell phone. And also there's some groups, even online, they're trying to make people unplug. So just slow down a little bit. Don't be looking at your cell phone all the time. Just do something else. Even companies online, so online companies are saying, please don't go too crazy, because otherwise we won't have any way to prevent bad things from happening. And then the continuous need to disseminate, promote, and explain liberal values to fight nativism, isolationism, populism, and as appealing political ideologies. So this is my last slide. An utopia that internet could be a tool to enhance democracy. And there's a very famous paper saying, a very famous paper now saying, can democracy save the internet? I can give you the reference, it's a fascinating paper. And that is, oh, internet will expand people power, will make people more engaged and more political savvy and more political active. Well, the problem is that we're going pretty much on the other way. How easy it is to access the immense power and scope. It's liberal utilization, so no controls, no prohibitions. Well, except if you're in China or other places, but that is another conversation. And this made the internet a way for populists to appeal to the worst impulses of people and mobs. So democracy, and you were just mentioning that, now he's looking at me. You were just mentioning that a minute ago, and that is democracy needs an informed voter. And right now, an informed voter, when he goes to the internet, chances are that he's not going to be informed, he's going to be misinformed. And that voter has the ability, the will, and to understand the political situation. Like I think, again, was Slawomir that said, and that people are busy. People have other things to do, have other things on their life. No, it was you, Slaze. The people sleeping. Political, it's boring. And therefore, we need to make this easier, but in a good way, not in a bad way. Not in memes and trolls and bots. And also, to assure that we have the guardrails for norms and democratic mechanisms. That is also something very, very important because institutions, they have to get stronger to deal with this new reality. And they're not doing a good job. Like, for example, the media, it's not doing a good job because they are not fighting against this. They're trying to use it to make more money, to have more views, to have more people with them. So there is in the Washington Post, there is a very famous expression that says, democracy dies on darkness. And my last message is, let's hope that we don't have to switch off the internet to have democracy survive.